Hey everybody, I'm Drew Sanaki. Welcome to the Nerd Marketing Podcast. Got a lot on the show today. We talk about the big opportunity to migrate brands to Shopify. If you're looking for something to do in your career, don't miss that segment because I think it's a great way to unlock a lot of value for yourself and create value for private equity funds. I think we get into loyalty programs and we talk about the 5 considerations you need to do before you bite off a loyalty program. A lot of people think they're going to be a silver bullet. They aren't all the time. We talk about a recent acquisition, Full Beauty Brands acquired Avenue. We delve into how they're going to unlock some value there. And then we wrap up by talking about Masa, the killer seed oil-free tortilla chip brand, and how they leverage direct mail to increase customer lifetime value and customer acquisition. Here's the Nerd Marketing Podcast. Enjoy. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Good, Drew.
You've been busy.
Been on the road. Latest was Palm Springs eTail.
Right. You're like you're the hardest working man in Shopify apps, in the Shopify app world, I think. eTail, Palm Springs. Then you flew to, I don't know, you were in like in LA, and then I saw you like left the country for a while and came back.
Just, the jet setter.
Did you learn anything big?
You know what? I think the big insight from eTail was how much Shopify is still not in the sort of mainstream of consciousness of a lot of the larger enterprise brands. And I kind of thought that over the last year, with Shopify making such a hard push into the enterprise market, that it would be higher up in sort of the consciousness and consideration set for a lot of these enterprise brands who are legacy brands on typically custom tech stacks going back 10, 20 years, Salesforce Commerce Cloud, some even on Magento BigCommerce. And, I know, Drew, you and I, when we were running our turnarounds, was always like, how fast can we get this busted thing onto Shopify, cut all these IT costs out of these businesses? But it wasn't, it was still a little bit of like, isn't that sort of for small brands?
Well, I remember when you and I, Auto Anything, we were just like, get it on Shopify. It was sort of a novel idea. Like, certainly the PE overlords, aren't as familiar with it and probably perceive it as a small store solution. But even at the company, they're just like, really? Shopify? Like, isn't that like, Squarespace Commerce or something? So, it's interesting. I think there's a lot of upside for Shopify.
I totally agree. And unfortunately for you and I, we found out that, at that company, we had 6 million SKUs and Shopify was not equipped to handle that, especially at that time.
That's right.
Which was a big bummer. But for some of these other brands that could totally be supported by Shopify's current capabilities, it was just interesting to hear it's not a high. It's just not, it's still a bit of an unknown, still a bit of a question mark among, the IT folks and the marketing folks about, can I get the functionality that I want from Shopify? Is that capable of handling a store of my size?
Yes.
And it's like, don't you want your life to be a lot easier than, custom tech stacks where it takes, months to add any feature or function versus, installing an app? And again, it was interesting. It was eye-opening to know that there was still a ton of opportunity, a ton of penetration. And frankly, I thought it was a missed opportunity for Shopify to not have a much stronger presence at eTail this year. It was like, man, you have got to really educate this market even more than you're doing now. And what a captive audience of these big legacy brands in one place where you could have just had a lot more conversation, a lot more education around how far Shopify has come in the enterprise market. I mean, they just moved over ButcherBox. They just moved over Dollar Shave Club. But man, so many other folks still sort of clunky old,
Yeah.
tech stacks lumbering their way, through, trying to add marketing capabilities.
Yeah, I'm thinking of my career, and I've made like three turnarounds that were all had runs at Shopify. There was Karmaloop, Auto Anything, which proved to be ultimately impossible at the time, and then Overtone, which was our latest acquisition. They were on headless Shopify, but moved them to straight up Shopify. And in each case, at least Karmaloop and Auto Anything, I mean, you'd go into these brands doing nine figures, and the first question's like, how do tell me about your stack? And they're like, oh, it's on the server rack right over there. And like they're literally hosting it on a server rack in the office. And you realize that, one of your first keys to success and taking a lot of costs out of the business and moving as much as you can to off the shelf. I mean, it's not just like where it's hosted, it's the email system. It's every other system they use is like on that rack. So I think it's a little bit of maybe career advice to many of you who are listening right now, have like a really strong background in e-commerce and you're wondering how to like get some leverage off that. I think there's a real opportunity to look for legacy brands that are just on these archaic old stacks. And you serve as sort of the shepherd and advisor and veteran on, really get them onto off the shelf. And you can work with a private equity fund like we worked with Kingswood, but there's several out there now that are open to acquiring one of these legacy stacks, or if you wanted to just build a consulting practice around taking costs out of the business, moving to off the shelf. I feel like I figured that out late in my career, but it was a real need, and it's you can demand a premium if you're good at it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And you reminded me of a couple of things. The one was the server closet. I told that story at eTail a couple of times about how we literally had the server in a closet with fans blowing on it to keep the closet cool. And I remember you and I heading into Black Friday, where you're going to do millions of dollars a day in sales, going like, what happens if the closet overheats? Who's going to go in there?
Stumble, like some dude just trips on the cord and you like unplug the site.
Exactly.
Like, you got guys, what are we doing here?
Exactly. But we also had, we pulled $6 million in IT spend out of that business in the first year because of just moving them. They had 50 engineers or something like that. We moved them to a lot more off the shelf solutions. And that was before we even got to Shopify. And that was a huge, huge imperative win for that company. Because again, it was a turnaround. So bleeding cash. And I remember the other thing that we did was we had a spreadsheet of all the features and functionality that we wanted in the app. And we had check marks on one column for like, this is native with Shopify or has a one-click install for Shopify. Here's if we need to build it. And it was just 50 rows long of stuff that was like, we could have this active tomorrow. If we were on Shopify, if we have to build it or integrate some other third-party tool, this is like a 3-year roadmap. And we were it was crazy.
I think if you're interested in this, like the place to start is looking at those e-commerce 1.0 brands that kind of started around 2000. Karmaloop started then, Auto Anything started then. I'm thinking of brands like eBags. In many ways they were these sort of category killers that got really big, rode SEO up, and now we're 20, 25 years into their life cycle. They're still there, probably still have really good SEO, but someone needs to take them and get them on off the shelf to take a lot of costs out of the business. Okay, Mike, while we were looking into e-commerce trends and news this week, we always like to talk about e-commerce trends and news. When we were doing these migrations, one of the tools we used, there's always like loyalty software, a loyalty program. And in fact, a study came out this week where Loyalty Lions surveyed, a bunch of Shopify, a couple hundred Shopify apps, and asked, like, unsurprisingly, what's their top priority? It was loyalty. So I don't know much about the survey, but it kind of put loyalty on our radar. And you and I have had, a long experience running loyalty programs. We sort of came up with like 5 things, considerations when you want to start a loyalty program. I feel like there's this perception out there among marketers that, hey, all we got to do is implement a loyalty program and our customer lifetime value is going to go through the roof. It's like the silver bullet. Who's it? Bill Bain said at one point, that it's so much easier. He's one of the first people to say it's so much easier to retain a customer than to go acquire a new one. So I feel like brands out there really think that like loyalty marketing is where they're going to see success. I think there are 5 considerations there. And the first is really like in our world, the world of nerd marketing, where we talk about customer behavior and RFM. Think of a loyalty program as a way to change customer behavior, not as a way to generate loyalty. So loyalty is going to be generated by your products and how much customers love the products. That's what's going to elicit brand loyalty. A program is not going to create loyalty out of thin air, but what it can do is change customer behavior. So I think you should think of a loyalty program almost as a retention program and how you want to change and modify customer behavior. Don't be under the illusion that you're going to create a brand or loyalty.
Yeah, I think that's a really critical point. And to emphasize that, if you think about it as a rewards program, if it turns into a rewards program for your existing loyal customers, all you're doing is giving up margin to people that were already loyal and buying anyway. That's where loyalty programs become most dangerous. When you don't think about how you can use it to influence behavior and change behavior, you end up just subsidizing existing loyal customers with margin. And that is a disaster for a business, because these are the folks that are more likely to buy at full price anyway. And you're just handing them a discount they weren't even asking for. That's crushing to margins. So really important point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. The second point, or the second consideration we had, is that just looking at a lot of data, think about a loyalty program as you want to allocate between 3 and 5% of your revenue to the program, to points, to rewards. And what we've seen is that programs that offer below that, say 1%, they fail because they don't meaningfully influence customer behavior. So that's just, I think, a rule of thumb that not a lot of people talk about. Like, you got to put some teeth in your loyalty program or your retention program. If the brands that go too light on these typically don't get the response that they want.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, it goes back to the first point. You end up just giving away points, giving away some extra dollars. You didn't make it meaningful enough to actually change behavior. And I think that actually takes us to our third point of what are those things that you want to be thinking about that are intangible benefits that go beyond your typical points program. And that's things like experiences, insider access, exclusive first looks, exclusive access to products, exclusive access to events. I think to me, the gold standard of loyalty programs is KIF. If you don't know KIF, super cool clothing, accessories, too cool for me probably, but I do love the brand. And if you're thinking about a loyalty program, or you have introduced a loyalty program and you want to get inspiration for how someone executes it really well, check out KIF. It's already a brand that's focused on exclusivity, and they amp that up with their loyalty program by giving you exclusive additional benefits for access to exclusive products, access to exclusive events. Like, that's how you piggyback on something that is on brand already and generate just more raving fans for
Right.
your brand and increase purchase frequency and revenue because you're giving them things that they wouldn't have been able to access or do otherwise.
Yeah, and I think a lot of fashion and apparel brands are really good at this. Um, as you know, Mike, I've got a strong background in streetwear,
Yes, you do.
kind of iconic. Supreme comes to mind. Greats like these brands that just unlocked that exclusivity with exclusive drops. Sort of made their name in streetwear, but things like that that elicit this emotional connection with your customer are often way better than going to the app store, finding a loyalty points app, bolting it onto your store and thinking magic's going to happen. So I would
That's
say
right.
this is a little bit about putting your thinking caps on, and your marketing cap, and starting there, thinking about what's going to actually be meaningful to my customers and elicit that reaction. Our fourth consideration: are you really good with a loyalty program, or do you want to just start with retention? I think a lot of brands think of loyalty programs as like, okay, we focused on acquisition. Okay, now we've got to like roll out the magic loyalty program. A lot of them are just better off starting with straight up retention programs. Do you have a win back in place? Like, have you looked at your standard customer behavior and figured out, when your best customers come back to buy, and then sort of greasing the skids and making sure that they see the right offer at the right time, implementing a discount ladder, which I know we talk about a lot, just like those basics on the retention side. I think will take you a long way in maximizing your customer lifetime value without the need to build out a formal and often hard to administer loyalty program.
Yeah, another great point. And the thing about loyalty programs is once you roll it out, it's really hard to pull it back if you realize that this isn't
Sure.
working. Because now you've got these people that have become members of something, they've started accumulating benefits. And just as a side note, those benefits often have to sit on your balance sheet. So it's another
I
accounting
was
thing.
just going to say it's a bit of like the third rail when you go to acquire a company and you're looking through the balance sheet and you're like, oh my God, these guys owe X dollars to, a zillion former customers that they can redeem at any time.
That's right. So, the complexity of rolling it out, the fact that once it's out in the wild, it's very hard to pivot away from it or change it materially because you're just going to now have a bunch of upset people that felt like, they earned something and you're taking it away or changing it. So, I agree, get really focused on retention first. See how much mileage you can get just out of doing that, and then think about how you potentially roll out a loyalty program to take it a step further, but do it super thoughtfully before you just, test into something like that.
Yep. And the fifth consideration is really to be data driven. If the marketer looks at his or her customer base, make sure you do your analysis, figure out things like intra-purchase latency and which customers come back when, and make sure the loyalty program like syncs with that data and really tries to change customer behavior at the point of greatest impact. And the programs that do better, I think, really take that customer behavior into account. So read up on your nerd marketing and make sure you do a good job of profiling all your customers before you go and try to start a loyalty program.
Yeah, that's right. Track your cohorts over time. If you're not seeing an improvement in that intra-purchase latency, if you're not seeing an improvement in LTV, if you're not seeing an improvement in those different cohort charts that you're looking at, then again, you're subsidizing people and not changing their behavior at all.
Loyalty programs. Those are our 5 recommendations.
Drew, a little blast from your past this week in our M&A recap.
That's right. So the brand Avenue.com, was acquired by Full Beauty Brands. And I think Full Beauty has made a number of acquisitions in the plus size apparel space. 4th acquisition in over a year. They also picked up Cup, which is a digitally native intimates brand, Eloquy, and a couple others. But Avenue probably doing, I think I could find that they were doing almost 200 million in revenue last year, but in a slow decline. They've had some store closures. So they're both avenue.com and they've got stores. I believe they were also owned by private equity in the past. I've got a bit of history with the brand because at one point I consulted for them and helped them do some retention and cohort analysis work. And I just remember it as a brand that had like very passionate users. They were on the cusp of kind of exploiting social media. They had a real vibe in their stores. You know, there was like the Avenue customer. So interesting to see they got passed sort of from one PE to another. Looks like Full Beauty is trying to do a roll up of the category. And, I guess the question is like, what do you do with Avenue if it's sort of a steady state, big hybrid D2C and retail brand going forward? The first thing I'd probably think about is some cross-selling with the other brands. You know, you've got an intimates line in Cup, and you've got Avenue, which is sort of all on trend apparel. Seems like those would go together and not be competitive. You could do some cross-selling and upselling at the point of purchase, after purchase. So that's probably where I would start.
Yeah. Sounds like they were not profitable, at least as of recently. So any thoughts on quick wins to get them back to profitability?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think of how we started this podcast, and Avenue is one of those brands that started 20 years ago online, right? So I don't know. I'm not as familiar with their tech stack. I mean, at the time when I consulted with them, it was pretty archaic. I don't know if they were on Exact Target, but something like that, just like an old school ESP. Their platform was pretty old. So I think I would start initially with cost outs and trying to get this on an off-the-shelf platform, avenue.com. Shopify would be a great choice for them. And, if I were at Full Beauty Brands, I would probably build out a little operating team at the portfolio level that could run point on these migrations for every brand they acquire. Because, there's money in getting them all on the same setup. Probably could negotiate better deals with Shopify, Klaviyo, everyone else. And then you want all your data piping into the same sort of ERP, whether that's NetSuite or you use something custom. But I'd probably start there with the cost outs, which might get it profitable, at least on a cash flow basis in the short run. And then I'd really lean into retention. I mean, the RFM was really impressive on this brand. A lot of high lifetime value customers, repeat purchases. As I remember, this was a brand that was sort of blindly focused on customer acquisition and was not doing a whole lot on the life cycle side. I mean, this was 10 years ago, but I can't, I think like a lot of brands this size are not sort of state of the art on how they go back to their customer base and try to bring them back to purchase. So probably figuring out the common paths through the site, what people buy, what they're inclined to buy next, and then just greasing the skids with things like email, SMS, and direct mail.
Yeah, I think you're right. Blocking and tackling in businesses like this, I think, can go a long way, simply because we have a ton of data on apparel brands and particularly plus size apparel brands, and they tend to have extraordinarily high LTVs. Once that core consumer finds something that fits them well and that they like
the brand
stylistically, they lock on to that brand.
Yep.
And they buy a ton from them. So it would be surprising to me, to your point, if there wasn't significant additional upside in doing some of the blocking and tackling around retention better than what they're doing today, which would significantly help them get back to profitability if that were the case.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'd go in, I'll put my post-pilot hat on. I'd go in and pitch the portfolio companies on a joint catalog, introducing all their products. They could drop it to a combined customer list. They could do a lookalike, and they could do some acquisition off of it. I think that'd be a great place to start with direct mail. There you go. Avenue, acquired by Full Beauty Brands. We don't have the price information, but good luck to them. All right, Mike, we've got an interesting case study today. Ancient Crunch, which is the company behind Masa chips. So
Great chips.
Amazing chips, by the way. And I am a consumer of Masa chips. Do you know why?
I'm going to guess maybe keto friendly.
No. I think I'm a fan because they don't have seed oils, man. Seed oils. Like you pick up any brand of chip out there. I mean, especially those created, like in our youth. And it's like vegetable oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil. For years, I've wanted a tortilla, like a good tortilla chip that doesn't use seed oils. And so Masa has come along. They don't use seed oils. And so you can cook in things like avocado oil or, if you're lucky, tallow, something like that. But, healthy, if you believe that seed oils are evil, like I do, you want a chip that you can feel good about eating. So I've always, since these guys came on the scene a couple of years ago, I've been long on Masa. They came to us with more of a retention problem, more of like let's optimize the lifetime value of our customers, certainly those that buy direct. And we launched them with 3 tactics to improve customer lifetime value. So the first tactic, and conversion. So the first tactic was mail match. So mail match is our proprietary process whereby, any brand out there has a massive list of fence sitters. People have never purchased from them before. So what we can do is we look at your email list. We can pull out all those who have never purchased before. And then we basically can correlate a certain percentage of those to a physical address where you can drop a postcard. So why would you want to do that? It's because it works. These people are on your email list and have never ordered, despite your best efforts. You've given them every offer in the book. They have not responded. They will still respond to direct mail. So we built out a mail match campaign. It happens in the background as people sign up for the list. And a certain amount of time goes by, they get the mail match print collateral with the same offer that they've got in email, and that's getting people off the fence and buying.
That's right. And the second tactic or strategy that they used is one that we haven't talked a whole lot about, and that actually answers a question that we get from brands sometimes, which is how many times should I be hitting a customer with direct mail? And often brands are doing it once. But the real answer is as many times as it's still profitable for you. So if you're hitting an audience at 60 days and you're getting, a 6x ROAS on that audience, go out 90 days and focus on the people that still haven't come back and bought after, again, they've been sitting on your email list this whole time. They got a direct mail postcard at day 60, but they weren't ready to buy then.
Right.
Maybe at 90 days, you're getting a 4x ROAS. That's still good. You should still be doing it. And then you just keep going until you've hit that inflection point of profitability or contribution margin where it no longer hits your profitability targets. But there's no reason not to do more if all of these things are generating incremental revenue at a profitable return or margin.
Incremental is incremental, no matter where it happens.
That's right.
So we love to see that. And the third and final tactic they explored during this test was our abandoned cart campaign called Cart Match. We all know what abandoned carts are. Customer leaves an item in the cart, and that typically triggers an email or SMS campaign to try to pull them back and complete purchase. You can do the same thing in direct mail. It works better than either of those channels in that the response rate's better. So Masa leaned into that. It's working really well. And the overall results have just been impressive. So Mail match gets them consistently a 3 to 4 times ROAS, new customer acquisition off the mail match. Cart match is clocking in at a 10x and abandoned checkouts. And on retention, they're seeing 4 to 15 times, depending on the segment, return off those retention campaigns. So this is all tested for incrementality, control groups, and it's legit. So Masa's very happy. They're leaning into us for other brands that they own. And it's a great place to start when you are. I think this is a really good, typical place we'd start a lot of customers.
Yeah. And that range that you mentioned is exactly the point, because they were able to test out to customers who hadn't bought in over a year and still getting very, very healthy returns at a year plus. So again, that's somebody that is long sort of defected from the brand. They clearly have not been engaging with email, digital ads, but you can drive significant incremental LTV and profitability by hitting them at a year plus out. That's a big win for any brand.
Yeah. So if you're a CPG brand, even if you use seed oils, I would say check out the case study. It's on the website. We'll link to it in the show notes. And worked for Masa.